Welcome to the Silverwood Saga podcast. Follow the story at silverwoodsaga.com. Now it's time to step back into the forest. After a couple of days of rest, Jay has regained some of his strength, though the pain in his side still lingers. The healing process has been slow but steady, thanks to the temple's care. Sylra, too, has been recovering, the colour returning to her face, her wounds healing well. One morning the priest enters the room with a gentle but firm smile. The priest approaches the bed and crosses his arms, offering a slight smile. You've rested long enough, and while your wound is healing well, the body needs movement to finish its recovery. We can't have you lying around forever. Sylra, sitting nearby, smirks slightly at the priest's comment. She looks over at Jay, raising an eyebrow. Looks like our time to relax is coming to an end, she says playfully. The priest nods in agreement. Just take it slow at first, but it's important to start moving. You'll feel stronger with each step. He gestures toward the door. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here to help. As Jay sits on the edge of the bed, feeling the lingering soreness in his body, he glances at the priest and offers a small, grateful smile. Thanks, he says, his voice steady but soft. But I've got all the help I need right here. He reaches out a hand towards Sylra, his fingers open in a quiet invitation. Sylra, her expression warming, smiles back at him. Without hesitation, she takes his hand. She steps closer, offering her strength as Jay prepares to stand. The priest watches the exchange with a knowing smile, nodding in approval. I can see you're in good hands, he steps back to give them space. But remember, slow steps at first. The road ahead is long, but you'll get there. Jay tightens his grip on Sylra's hand, bracing himself, then begins to stand. The movement is careful, the ache in his side reminding him to take it easy, but with Sylra's help, he finds his footing. You've got this, Sylra says, her tone light but encouraging, her eyes filled with reassurance. Sylra looks at Jay, standing there in the tattered gown provided by the temple, and, despite the seriousness of the situation, a small smile tugs at her lips. All right, she says, her voice playful but filled with warmth. First order of business, let's get you out of that rag and into something more dignified. She gently tugs at the sleeve of his worn gown, raising an eyebrow. You can't go wandering around like this. Jay can't help but chuckle, though he winces slightly from the movement, still sore from his wounds. He glances down at his tattered attire and shakes his head. Yeah, it's a bit airy. The priest, overhearing their conversation, steps forward with a nod. We don't have much in terms of clothing here, but the marketplace in town has everything you'll need. Sylra gives Jay a reassuring look before adding with a wink, Don't worry, I'll make sure you look good. As they walk through the winding streets toward the market, Jay leans on Sylra for support, his steps slow but steady. Despite the lingering soreness in his body, he can't help but smile. The energy of the town is vibrant, the marketplace alive with people milling about, the sounds of merchants calling out their wares filling the air. Sylra glances at him from time to time, noticing the smile that hasn't left his face. Her lips quirk into a smirk. You look far too pleased for someone still recovering, she teases gently, though her own mood is lighter now, sharing in his relief. The market itself is bustling, full of stalls, offering everything from food to simple, durable clothes. Sylra pauses at one of the clothing stalls, eyeing some simple but sturdy travel clothes. She holds up a shirt, raising an eyebrow in Jay's direction, wordlessly asking for his opinion. Jay says, "I like the blue on it." Sylra smiles, holding the shirt up for a better look. "Blue it is, then," she says with a nod. She glances around the stall, picking out a pair of sturdy trousers and a belt to match. She hands the clothes over to the merchant and turns back to Jay, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of amusement and warmth. "Anything else you need, or is this enough to keep you from wandering around in temple rags?" she teases lightly. Reflecting on the cold nights he spent on the road, Jay says, "I think we should find something warm for those chilly nights. I'm open to any suggestions." Sylra raises an eyebrow, clearly pleased by Jay's practicality. "Something warm, huh?" she says, scanning the market stalls with a thoughtful expression. "Good idea. I don't think either of us wants to freeze." She guides Jay over to a stall selling cloaks and heavier garments. Picking up a thick woolen cloak lined with fur, she holds it out toward him. "What do you think of this? Should keep you warm when the nights get cold." Sylra tilts her head with a mischievous grin. "You could get something warmer, or—" She lifts a large, thick cloak from the stall. "We could share this one," she jokes. Jay blurts without thinking, "That's a great idea." Her smile freezes for a beat, eyes widening. "Oh, so you've thought about sharing cloaks before, have you?" He stammers, rubbing the back of his neck. I just meant, for warmth. Hang on, you suggested it." Sylra laugh interrupts him, enjoying his discomfort. Warmth." She turns the cloak over in her hands, pretending to inspect the fabric. "Well, it is a big cloak. It'd be a shame not to test that theory." Jay exhales, half grinning now. "Smaller cloaks let cold air in." "They do, and we can't have you catching a chill," she says, her tone dripping with mock seriousness. She hands the coin to the merchant, then glances back at him with a teasing smile. "Guess you'll just have to stay close and find out." They share a grin with each other as they move away from the stall. Jay is smiling ear to ear. "You're the expert. Anything else we need?" She can't help but smile back. Her eyes scan the rest of the market as she considers his question. "Well, since you put me in charge," she says, her voice playful but thoughtful, "let's see, we've got clothes and warmth covered. Maybe we should pick up some extra supplies, food, water skins, and something to help start that fire I promised to teach you how to make." After grabbing a few items, some dried meats, fruits, and a couple of water skins, she glances back at him with a grin. "Now, unless you're secretly attuned to the fire elements, I'm thinking we should grab a flint and steel. You're going to need it if I'm not around to do all the hard work." "Let's get it," Jay says, already opening his coin pouch. Sylra watches with a soft smile as Jay eagerly hands over a few coins to pay for the flint and steel. "All right," she says, looping her arm gently through his to support him as they prepare to leave the market. "I think we're ready." Jay suddenly says, "Oh, one more thing. What if we run into trouble?" Sylra blinks. "Trouble? You mean at the picnic?" He nods, dead serious. "Yeah, maybe someone tries to take our food or something." For a moment she just stares at him, unsure whether he's joking. Then, realizing he isn't, she hides a small smile and looks around the busy market, full of laughter and harmless chatter. "Right, of course," she says, her tone softening. "Well, we can't have that, can we?" She starts scanning the nearby stalls, pretending to consider their options. "Let's find something that'll make you feel prepared then." Leading Jay to a nearby stall where weapons are on display, swords, daggers, and other weapons. Sylra picks up a small, sturdy blade. She holds it out to Jay, tilting her head. Her eyes search his. "You don't need anything too heavy just yet." Jay browses the weapons, a bit bewildered. "Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing." He pokes a short sword. "What do you think?" Sylra smiles gently at Jay's honesty, her eyes softening with understanding. "That's all right," she says, giving him a reassuring look. She picks up a smaller blade, one that looks sharp but manageable for someone who isn't experienced with weapons. It's light, easy to handle, but sturdy enough to be useful in a tight situation. "How about this?" she suggests, holding it out for him to see. It's a good starting point, small enough to carry without weighing you down, but strong enough to protect yourself if we run into trouble. Sylra passes it to Jay. He examines it for a moment, gives it a playful swing. Sylra's eyes widen in surprise as she watches Jay wave the blade around. Jay flinches. "Ah!" He pulls his hand back as he notices the thin line of red on his finger. Sylra immediately bursts into laughter. "Well, that's one way to break in a new weapon," she teases, shaking her head with a smile. She steps closer, gently taking his hand to inspect the cut. "Let me see." She grabs a small cloth from her pouch, wrapping it around Jay's finger with a smirk. "All right, lesson number 1. Maybe don't wave it around like a toy," she says, still chuckling. Jay stands there, unsure what to do, the heat of embarrassment creeping up his neck. Once Sylra finishes wrapping his finger, she pats his hand gently. "I guess now we know it's sharp," still grinning. "Yeah, we may need to practice," Jay winces. "Damn, that stings like a paper cut." Sylra laughs again, shaking her head. "Yeah, those little cuts always sting the worst," she says, still amused by Jay's reaction. "Good news is you didn't lose a finger on your first try, so I'd call that a win. We'll practice, I promise. I'll show you the ropes. Let's find somewhere safe. No more waving it around without knowing what you're doing, all right?" "You're the boss," he winks. Sylra smirks at Jay's playful wink, her eyes glinting with amusement. "That's right," she says with mock seriousness. She gives him a gentle nudge as they turn to head back from the market. Sylra falls in step beside him, hooking his arm. She motions toward a quieter alleyway leading out of the busy market. "Come on, let's head somewhere a bit more private and where you are less likely to harm other people." With a playful grin, Sylra weaves them through the crowd, her pace quick and full of energy. Jay does his best to keep up, though the pain from his wound starts to flare up again. Noticing his struggle, Sylra slows her pace, her playful expression softening with concern. She glances back over her shoulder, catching the way he winces as he moves. "Hey, easy there," she says, gently coming to a stop. "No need to push yourself too hard. We can slow down." She steps back toward him, her arm slipping around his waist. "Let's not have you pass out before we even start swinging that blade, all right?" she adds with a wink. Jay can't help but smile. As they finally find a quiet park, the sounds of the bustling market fading behind them. Eager to learn, Jay says with his grin not leaving his face. "So, tell me about this dagger, oh, wise one." Sylra smiles back. "Oh, wise one am I?" she teases, giving him a mock serious look. "All right, since you've asked for my wisdom, let's start with the basics." She takes the dagger from Jay's hand, holding it up so he can see it clearly. "First, this isn't a sword. You're not going to be swinging it around like in the old stories of knights and heroes. A dagger is about precision. It's meant for close combat, for when you don't have the space to use something larger." Sylra flips the blade gently in her hand, showing him the proper grip. "You want to hold it like this, with a firm grip, but not so tight that you lose flexibility. Control is key, especially when things get messy." She hands the dagger back to Jay, watching closely as he mimics her grip. "Now, you're not going to wave it around wildly. It's more about quick, precise movements. You're looking to protect yourself first, not attack like some wild warrior." Her gaze meets his, her eyes serious but still carrying that playful spark. "Think you can manage that, or are you planning to slice up more than your finger?" she asks with a grin. Jay asks with a hint of playfulness, "So what do I do if a wild beast comes at me, ready to devour me?" Sylra chuckles at Jay's question. "Well, if a wild beast comes charging at you, your first move isn't to attack, it's to survive." She leans forward slightly, demonstrating as she speaks. If it's a large animal or something too fast, your first instinct should be to get out of its way. You're not trying to fight it head on. You don't want to be there when it lunges. She steps beside him, using her hands to gesture a quick sidestep. Move to the side, get out of its path, and then, if you have no choice, you strike. Sylra grips the dagger again, showing him a quick, downward thrust. Aim for vital spots if you're close enough. Go for the neck or the side. Don't waste time swinging wildly. A single, well-placed strike is better than trying to overpower something bigger than you. She hands the dagger back to him, guiding his hand gently. Now you try. Imagine a beast is coming at you, and your goal is to avoid its initial attack and make a quick, decisive move. Okay, then, Jay repeating the instruction. Quick step to the side, then a fast stab. As Jay thrusts forward, he feels a sharp pull. His stitches tear open. Damn! Maybe I'll stick to small rodents for now. He winces, clutching his side as a small trickle of blood runs down from the reopened wound. Sylra's playful expression quickly shifts to concern as she sees Jay clutch his side, the small trickle of blood darkening his shirt. Damn it, Jay, she mutters, moving swiftly to his side. Her hands are gentle but firm as she guides him to sit down again. Okay, this wasn't a good idea. No more wild beast scenarios for you today, she says with a mix of exasperation and worry, her voice soft but firm. She kneels beside him, inspecting the torn stitching. We'll need to get this fixed up. Her brow furrows slightly and she sighs. I knew I should have insisted on more rest before you started waving blades around. She reaches for her pouch, finding a clean cloth to press against his wound to stop the bleeding. I'll patch you up back at the temple, she says with affection in her tone. Okay, I think you're right, Jay admits, struggling to stand. Sylra steps in, insisting on taking some of his weight. Jay smiles, despite the strain. It's been a good day, totally worth it, he says. Sylra gives Jay a small smile, though the concern in her eyes lingers. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but let's not make a habit of ending nice days with you bleeding all over the place, all right? She wraps her arm around his waist and takes most of his weight. Come on, lean on me, she says firmly, her tone leaving no room for protest. As they walk, Sylra stays close, her arm firmly around him, keeping him balanced. Despite the pain, Jay can't help but feel a sense of contentment. Sylra glances at him, catching the faint smile on his face despite the situation. All right, she chuckles. Maybe it was worth it, but now let's get you patched up. No more testing your limits today, okay? Jay just smiles back at her. Together they make their way back to the temple. As they step back into the calm, candle-lit temple, the priest immediately notices Jay's condition. His eyes narrow when he sees the fresh blood on Jay's side, and his face tightens with disapproval. He strides over quickly, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. What happened here? The priest asks, his tone sharp, as he inspects the torn stitching. His gaze quickly shifts to Sylra, and there's a clear edge of blame in his voice. I told you both that he needed to take it easy. This wound is barely healing, and now it's opened again. Sylra, still supporting Jay, tenses slightly at the priest's words, but she meets his gaze calmly. It was an accident, she says, her voice firm but measured. We were taking it slow, but Jay got a little too enthusiastic. With a huff, the priest gently but firmly guides Jay to sit on the nearest bed. You need to understand the seriousness of this, the priest says, directing his words more towards Sylra, though his eyes glance between the two of them. Sylra holds her ground, her voice steady. I know, and I take responsibility for it, but he's healing. This was just a small setback. She looks down at Jay with a soft smile, though there's still concern in her eyes. We'll be more careful. The priest grumbles as he starts to clean and redress Jay's wound. but the tension in his shoulders eases slightly as he works. "You'd better be," he mutters, though the sharpness in his tone has faded. "Next time listen to the advice given to you, and we won't end up here again." Jay looks at the priest. "Thanks for the help, priest. Sorry I reopened it. I was trying to run before I could walk, maybe pushing myself a little too hard to keep up. But she's been looking after my mental well-being too. Honestly, it was an incredible day, one of the best. I wouldn't change a thing." The priest's expression softens slightly. With a sigh, the priest finishes redressing the wound, shaking his head lightly but with less frustration. "Well, if it was worth it to you, then perhaps I can't argue too much. But you still need to take better care of yourself. Physical healing and mental well-being are both important. Just maybe find a balance, yes?" His voice is stern but with a hint of understanding. He steps back, giving Jay and Sylra space. "You're lucky to have someone watching out for you," the priest adds, looking briefly at Sylra before turning his attention back to Jay. "But next time try to listen to your body. Your health is a priority too." Sylra, still by Jay's side, gives him a light nudge with a playful smirk. "See, even the priest knows you've got to find balance." Her teasing is gentle, and there's a warmth in her eyes as she looks at him. "But I'm glad you wouldn't change a thing." The priest straightens up, his stern demeanour easing a bit more. "Get some rest," he says, "and maybe next time you'll be able to enjoy another day like today without opening up any wounds." With a final nod, the priest turns to leave them, leaving Jay and Sylra in the peaceful quiet of the temple once more. Jay rests back in the bed. "What a day! I liked it. What shall we do tomorrow?" Sylra leans against the bed, giving Jay a soft smile. "What a day indeed," she says, her tone playful but gentle. "As for tomorrow, let's try something a bit less action-packed. Maybe we can actually take it slow, you know, without the bleeding part." She sits down beside him, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of his hand. "How about we start with something simple? We could walk through the town a bit, explore more without rushing. Then find a quiet spot to just relax." She pauses for a moment, her eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "And if you're up for it, I could finally teach you how to start that fire without slicing your finger off." Her smile grows softer. "We don't need to plan anything too wild, just enjoy the day." Jay says with a grin. "Sounds like a plan. Let's head to the market, grab a few things, find a nice spot, and light something up." Sylra chuckles at Jay's enthusiasm, shaking her head with a playful grin. "All right, market first, then I'll show you how to start a fire." Her eyes soften and there's a warmth in her voice. "It'll be good to just enjoy the day without any rush." Sylra gently squeezes his hand before standing. "Rest up for now, though." Jay looks at her warmly. "Sylra, I'm glad I found you." Sylra pauses, her eyes meet his, and for a moment, the teasing and playfulness fall away. "I'm glad you found me too, Jay," she says quietly, her voice filled with sincerity. She sits back down beside him. "I don't think I'd be here without you." There's a brief silence between them. She reaches out, resting her hand on his gently. "You've been through a lot," she continues, her voice soft but strong. "We both have." Her smile returns, tender and filled with affection. "I'm not going anywhere." Jay says nothing. He simply gazes at her. She catches a warm smile spreading across his face. Her own smile softens as she holds his gaze. She gives his hand a gentle squeeze, then leans back slightly, her eyes still on his. "Get some rest," she says softly. "Tomorrow's another adventure, but for now, just rest." The quiet settles in as they sit together, letting the last of the day fade around them. Neither rushes to move. They just rest, side by side, letting the long hours finally loosen their grip. Thank you for listening. I'm creating and sharing this story on my own, so your support genuinely means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and leave a review wherever you listen. Those small things really help support me. For updates, or if you'd like to read the story instead, visit silverwoodsaga.com. Thank you.